Hello, and welcome to the Common Geeking Program. We are a book club style podcast where each episode we discuss a different topic from our own geeky and nerdy perspectives. I am your host, Jeff Leavitt, and this week we are going to be taking a look at Digimon Evolution. No, we're going to be taking a look at Squid Game. And this time around, I am joined by two fellow nerds who can introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Taeemul, or Chowder, whichever you prefer. And, I'm probably backstabbing you first chance I get.
That checks out.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn. I would probably die in the very first round out of confusion. If I didn't die in the very first round out of confusion.
Okay, if we're being realistic, yeah, we'd all die in the first. We'd all die in the first round out of confusion.
Yeah.
I don't know about.
To be fair though, my fight or flight response is to freeze, so yeah. I might just not get across the finish line.
I think I'd get the concept, but I don't think I would be able to stop my body from flinching at the sound of a gunshot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. I wouldn't be one of the people who runs to the
fucking door. Yeah, I was like, come on, guys, like, figure it out.
But I would jump up like, oh god, and it's like, that's when I'm out. So
yeah. Anyway, if you have not watched Squid Game, you're probably a little bit confused as to what the fuck that whole thing was about, but we promise we'll be getting into it. We're going to start off by summarizing and discussing Squid Game, and then end with a little rating section where we decide if our topic today was worthwhile and enjoyable. How are you guys doing? You want to just get on into it, or how are you feeling?
I mean, I got work at 1, so like,
I feel like
we should
if that man showed up,
quick pace.
I would probably join. That's where I'm at right now. If he was like, hey, throw this paper at the ground and see if it flips the other paper, I would do it. That's where I'm at. So.
Oh yeah, no, easily. I'd let him slap me all day if I got money out of that.
So yeah.
The death game part I would be hesitant on, but like nobody knew the death game part going in.
Yeah. That's just where I'm at mentally. That's where I would. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Good to know. All right, let's move on into the summary. So,
all right, so Splatoon is a third-person shooter video game developed by Nintendo. It was released in
2015
for the Wii U.
I get it. See, that's much fucking funnier than the Digimon joke I made earlier that neither of you even reacted to.
I never watched Digimon, I'm sorry.
It has no relevance to this. I just picked a random thing.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, Squid Game, if you're unfamiliar, is a South Korean produced live-action show that was released on Netflix this year. And it has, just to set off a little backdrop here, it has quickly, risen in the numbers to become, one of Netflix's most viewed things ever? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
It's quickly looking to surpass, I think, what is it, Bridgerton? I don't know what the number one thing on Netflix is.
Which is another surprising thing. I'm just like, I barely heard of Bridgerton, little.
Yeah, I saw everyone talking about it, a bit ago, but, I've never watched it. So it's kind of amazing that Squid Game has surpassed.
It kind of has me wondering what made it explode in popularity. I mean, it's not, the first show about death games on Netflix.
Sure. I'm guessing that, obviously with this show in particular, a lot of the numbers are coming from the East. Particular, there's literally, a South Korean, internet provider that is fucking suing Netflix for how popular this show is because it's, crashing a bunch of their servers.
Which is hilarious because, their internet is 4 times faster than ours and better. So, that says a lot about how much it's being watched in South Korea.
Right, which clearly that means that like the majority of the numbers are probably coming from that side of the world.
Well, and like, they've been greenlighting a lot of projects from like Asian countries because they just do numbers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the Chinese market is a real goddamn thing, you know? Like, I don't know, like, you know, there's just so many people in China that, like, if you get a lot of people in China to watch your shit, like, that's a lot of people, you know?
Yeah, so it's a good market strategy.
Yeah, for sure. Because, like, I was watching it, and, like, it hadn't totally dawned on me when I started that, like, those numbers were probably coming from other parts of the world. Because, you know, my stupid American brain was like, oh, this is the most popular thing in America, not the world. And, you know, I was watching it, I was like...
It is doing well in America, too, which is the crazy thing. Like, I actually... heard about it from friends who normally don't watch this kind of show.
Right, yeah.
That was the weird thing, was people who normally don't watch K-dramas were talking to me, and I was like,
Well, because it was also like...
How did you find this?
It was also just, you know, advertised on, like, the, you know, like, the front page of Netflix, which, like, a lot of this stuff usually
so it was like,
wouldn't.
Please watch.
Yeah. Like, even after, you know, watching some of it, I can't imagine that it's, like, you know, it's not, like, popular in the same way that, like, everyone's watching it, like, your fucking Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or, like, Stranger Things are, where it's just, like, a part of the public dialogue is that a lot of people have watched the show. Like, I can't imagine that many people, at least in America, would be, like, down for this, you know? Not that it isn't good, but it, you know, it definitely doesn't feed into, like, I don't know, typical American media
that are
tropes.
Talking about it, but it's not going to be like your parents are going to talk to you next week about, did you watch Squid Game?
It's kind of a downer, you know? I mean, I guess...
Yeah.
I mean...
It's a little bit of a downer, yeah.
I wouldn't even say Game of Thrones is a downer the same way this is, you know?
Yeah, well...
So, yeah. I don't know.
Well, because that one's a bit more escapist about it. This one's very like, hey... Life sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, anyway.
I mean, Game of Thrones is like, hey, you want to see these shitty nobles get slaughtered? Fuck yeah. I mean, yeah. Who doesn't want to see a bunch of inbred assholes just get what's coming to them, you
know? To get into the plot itself of Squid Game... basically, to give like a 2-sentence synopsis before we get into like, the kind of minutia of it, the whole thing revolves around a like a Hunger Games style like compete to win money kind of game, and all the losers die basically. Like our main character who we're introduced to is Gi-yeon, who is in a lot of debt, as is every other character who contributes to or who participates in the Squid Game. We see that he's living at home with his mother. He has a daughter and his ex-wife who left him. And, you know, he's kind of like, basically, you know, like he owes money to loan sharks. He's like rock bottom, basically, is the picture that they're painting for this guy. And then
he hit rock bottom, and along the way he hit every single rock along the way till he hit rock bottom.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then eventually a guy walks up to him in the subway and basically offers to gamble with him and say like, oh, if you can win this game where you throw this piece of paper at the ground and it flips, then you'll get, I can't remember the amount of money, and it's like, you know, the fucking
I believe it's 100,000 won.
Yeah, which would be really that much.
$100.
Right? Yeah, I was gonna say
that's 100 American dollars, just for reference. So you guys.
I was gonna say because you know they're fucking swinging around like thousands, and I was like that. Yeah, the exchange rate is quite something.
Yeah. But to be fair, a dollar goes a lot further in South Korea than it does here. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
$100 is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
Especially if you're very down on your luck.
Right.
And I think he ended up with like a bunch of money at that thing.
I mean, I'd get slapped in the face for $100.
he same. Because he basically every game that he played was being put into a stockpile. So when he did eventually
I didn't
win,
realize that. I thought that it was just like...
he won. Yeah, he won $100 per slap, basically.
Oh wow. Okay. I hadn't realized that. I thought it was just like, if you win once, you get that amount of money, and like he just lost a bunch, and it was, the guy gave him this deal where instead of having to pay him it was
basically he got to keep going.
He just gets to get slapped in the face really hard instead. So there's like this montage of him just like, getting slapped in the face over and over again, and then eventually he wins one, and the guy hands him this card with a circle, a triangle, and a square on it, that is basically inviting him to participate in something that he doesn't know at this point. And then I guess what happens is he gets pickpocketed, and that's what... No, doesn't that happen first? I can't remember. Like, what actually... I remember he wasn't going to do it at first, right? And then he, like, ends up doing it.
Yeah, so he goes to the, like, he ends up going to, like, kind of celebrate.
Yeah.
By going to like the racetrack and betting it,
and
in the process,
right? Okay.
Yeah, in the process, he actually gets pickpocketed by a character that we learn the name of later.
Yes.
Ji Young, or no, that's not Ji Young. That's Saebyok.
Yeah, Saebyok.
She
Saebyok.
Kang Saebyok, who's a North Korean defector.
Yeah. And yeah, right. As for right now, she's
learn
just a fucking pickpocketer. But yeah, we meet her properly later because, spoiler alert, she also gets put in the Squid Game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like basically, so he wins all this money and then immediately gets it stolen from him, and then like the loan shark collectors come to like take his money, and he realizes he doesn't have it because he got pickpocketed. And then like really desperate now, he ends up following the instructions on the card, and they go to pick him up at a certain location, and then he gets into the van, and they're gassed basically and knocked out. And then he wakes up in a room with 456 contestants, of which he is number 456, which is
poor guy.
Interesting. I'm sure there's some symbolism to that and the old man being one, but I
like to believe that it's the order they were picked up in.
Yeah, could be, but like I don't know. I mean, it might just be sure, but
either that or their debt in life.
No, it wasn't related to their debt at all. I know that. Like it was definitely just. It wasn't. I mean, like canonically in the show, it was just presented as as a arbitrary number system. Like I don't think it meant anything greater in the plot. I'm saying. I'm wondering why the writers decided to make him 456 and the old man 1, like the symbolism of it.
Yeah, I still think the symbolism was the monetary disparity between the two of them.
Yep.
I mean, could be, but like all the people in between, it seemed like there were definitely some people in there that were maybe worse off than he was.
We really don't... It's hard to say, really, in turn, because like... They never really specify how in debt he is to these loan sharks.
Yeah, that's true.
On top of like any other things, because he seemed to have a very bad gambling addiction.
Yeah.
So he could have been out a very, very large sum of money that we just never fully grasped.
Right.
But there was a lot of weird social structures also involved, I think, in that ranking.
Yeah.
Because I think his friend was in like the hundreds. Like just like one something.
Wasn't he like
I kind of thought the numbers were the order they got put into the game.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's
probably the easiest, simplest one.
Yeah, I think that's true. Probably although I have questions about that in terms of the old man, but we'll fucking get into him later. So anyway. Numbers aside, they all have numbers from 1 to 456, obviously. And they're greeted by these masked men who have either a circle, a square, or a triangle on their face.
Just like the business card.
Yeah.
Or a PlayStation controller.
Checks out. Right. Because it's
or
a
the
game.
Shapes of the game Squid Game.
Also.
But yeah.
True. I've got to say, after, like, we get a fucking explanation of the rules of Squid Game in both the first and last episode, and I still do not fucking understand how that game works.
It's a very elaborate kids game.
Yeah.
For, like, no reason.
But anyway,
there's
we
probably
are
reasons, but
basically we are introduced to some other characters. One of which, like, you know, he recognizes immediately as his friend Song-woo, who basically they grew up together as kids, and our main character Gi-yeon still shops at Song-woo's mother's shop, and you know he's like this golden boy.
Like, yeah, he's the one who like moved on and made something of himself. He's the
pride and joy of the school.
Yeah, basically, like,
good businessman, top of his class.
Yeah, he went to
classic.
university and was really successful. So then there's this question of, like, why is he here?
Yeah, how did you fuck up to be here?
Right,
Sorry,
and then we find out that basically, like, he made a bunch of, like, bad investments, right? And that, like, similar...
Oh, he did insider trading.
Yeah, he did insider trading, and then, like, he also mentions that he put his mother's shop and home up for collateral when he did this, so it's not just, like, you know, him that they're collecting from, but he's in, like, a ton of debt. And, I mean, just from the dialogue between the two of them when they're talking about it, I would guess that he's in more debt than Gi-yeon is.
It's likely just because he would have had more to lose. Yeah. Potentially.
Also true. But, yeah, so he's one of the first people that we're introduced to. We are also introduced to an old man whose name, who we don't get till, like, one of the last few episodes, Il-nam. But
yeah,
basically
we don't get the old man's name till the fourth game, which is the marbles, which is significant.
We'll get
we'll
into
talk about it later. Yeah.
We'll
get into it. Anyway, basically, he's an old man who says he's got a brain tumor, basically, and he doesn't really specify exactly what his debts are or what his stakes are, or if he's got a family he's trying to support, but he's here.
Yeah.
We also
he's gonna die soon anyway. He's here.
Right. Yeah. We also see the pickpocket. She's there. Like we said before. Again, we don't get her name revealed till later, but just for simplicity's sake, she is Se-byuk. And for now, I think that's good. We'll introduce.
Yeah, those are all the important.
Those are all the like really key players.
At least for right now, they are.
Yeah.
And then basically they're all brought into this room with, it's like this funky fucking, like playgroundy looking area with like child's drawings on the walls and shit like that. And they're instructed that they're going to play a game of red light, green light with this big fucking freaky looking animatronic doll that is the one that's going to say red light and green light. And then she turns her head 180 degrees and like, takes a look at them.
And she can sense movement.
Right, yeah.
From the players.
And so this is kind of, I think if you're picking up the tone of this show, you could probably see where this is going a mile away. But they start playing
ominous.
the game, and the first person who moves a little bit after she says red light.
Oh.
What?
We should also point out that when they say all of the rules.
Yeah. They repeat them twice.
Which they repeat them. And they repeat the, like, terminology a bunch because they sound like a contract and everything.
Right.
When they get in, or is that later?
They said no, they do the contract.
They do the contract before they go into the first game.
Do they? I feel like it's right.
Because that's how they know to end it.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're right. So, yeah, they sign a contract.
So
what's even the point of the contract? That, like, there's no legal system that would ever, like... Let that be.
So
yeah, I know.
But so one of the big important things is that they keep using the word eliminated.
Yeah.
You will be like, so which is kind of a word that can be like but it's kind of particular that they use the word eliminated because it's like you're not alluding to death. You're just saying, yeah, you'll be eliminated, which like for kids when you're on a playground, it's like, okay, you get to go sit in the corner, you're eliminated.
No, I do think if you were fucking in this environment with all these masked people, that would be a thing that would be reasonable to guess at this point. Just say.
Yes. Yeah.
But
so the fact that
people
didn't pick up on that.
Are down on their luck and very desperate for the money, so they're probably more.
They're thinking about the money.
Yeah,
and
they're
not
more tunnel visioned on the money. But yes, no, they find out that if they move after the red light is said, they get shot. And immediately as this happens, like half of the 456 just like run for the door and get mowed down. And I think that's actually where the first episode ends, right? Like they don't actually end which, you know, we're not
we don't get to see the resolution of the game yet. We just get to see that it's like, people die.
Which, you know, we're not gonna fucking go into exactly what happens in each specific episode, but so that's kind of, you know, setting up the backdrop of the show. The significant thing that happens after that is obviously they finish the game. All of the characters who I mentioned, of course, survive. Our main guy, Gi-yun, very nearly dies because he trips on a body as the red light thing is being said, so he's like falling. And then one of our other main characters catches him, whose name is Ali. Who is
Ali.
Yeah.
I love Ali so much.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. I have issues with Ali as a guy in canon seems like a real chill dude, but I have issues with just his existence in this show.
Yeah, I mean we can talk about that later, but
But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But he saves him, which I gotta say, there's no way if someone caught me, I would be able to stay that still.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, they also they set up that Ali is like super fucking strong.
Super strong.
Too, which also, I mean, we'll fucking talk about it. But
him being strong doesn't negate that you would have to be strong.
Yeah, that's true. No, they were definitely like moving more than some of those people that got shot after, you know. So I don't know about that, but anyway, you know, to skim by some of the more, you know, specific details. Basically, they beat the game, and you know, they come back into the main room, and they're all freaking the fuck out because of this fucking, you know, this setup, right? And you know, the guys, which they probably told them this earlier, but like they're talking about the amount of money that they'll get, and basically every time someone is eliminated from the game, this huge like fucking flying piggy bank on the ceiling gets added to with like a bunch of monies. And obviously the fewer people there are, you know, the fewer people it would be divided between as well. So they're explaining like, oh, you know, and one of the clauses when they're originally explaining the rules is if a majority of players want to end the game, they can hold a vote and do that. And basically, that's what they do. Someone suggests, let's end the game right now. And they go and they publicly vote to stay or leave. And they go in reverse order.
And you get a lot of weird intrigue seeing who votes to stay and who votes to leave. Yeah.
So Gi-yun is our first person, and he votes to leave. Out of all the other characters that we see, I'm sure that Songwoo votes to stay.
Songwoo votes to stay.
Okay, so Songwoo is the one who told them they could vote to leave, by the way.
Oh, was he?
He's the one who says and brings up the rules and says if we want to leave, we can, and brings up the vote.
That's interesting.
And starts the vote, and then votes to stay.
Huh.
I always found that to be a very telling thing, is that he gives everyone that like opportunity and then still votes to stay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of all of our other main characters, right? I think the pickpocket, what's her name? Sae-byuk, she votes to stay, I think. Right? I thought...
No, she votes to leave because of her stuff going on outside.
She voted to leave. I think everyone but Sungwoo and whatever.
Ilnam, I think.
No, Ilnam chose to leave as well. That was like
he was the last one. Vote. Yeah, he was the deciding vote, which is interesting for reasons we'll get into later.
The thug guy, what's his name?
Doksu.
Yeah, him.
Who's someone we haven't talked about. Yeah, basically, like, he's threatening the pickpocket because, like, they knew each other in the real world, and, you know, he's trying to...
Doksu's a
gangster, he voted to leave, too, right?
No, he voted to stay.
No, he voted to stay because he had people chasing him outside in the real world.
That's interesting. All right, I thought he was going to vote to stay, and then I noticed that he voted to leave. But
I mean,
probably
ultimately,
it makes more sense.
Ultimately, kind of moot. The point is,
matter.
everyone,
Yeah.
the majority voted to leave. Yeah, the majority voted
by
to leave.
one vote.
Yeah,
like
it was
they're
literally,
exactly
like,
split down the middle, and the old man, who is of course number one and therefore the last to vote, stands there for a while and then eventually decides to leave. So they get out of the game. Show's over. Boom, we're done. That was it.
No.
Good game. Great, good time, everybody. End of the show.
No, they before everyone leaves, like the game runners are like, but if you change your mind and decide you want to do this again, we'll be in contact with you. And so everyone goes back to the world.
Yeah.
And
they give everyone like a week or two to like realize that their lives are still horrible.
Yeah.
And they do need the money.
And then, I mean, we get a few sort of vignettes with some of our characters. We see that the gangster is like, chased down and is about to be killed. In terms of Gi-yeon, we find that his daughter and her mother and stepfather are about to move to America, and then we also learn that Gi-yeon's mother has diabetes, and basically they can't pay for the medical treatment because he got rid of their insurance or something like in the past. So like he's getting more and more desperate for money. He even goes to his ex-wife and like basically begs her for money, and then the step-husband or the step-husband, the new husband goes and like offers him money in like a really fucking kind of like, but you can't see your daughter anymore kind of way, and he doesn't take it. And he ends up running into Sung-woo again, and we see they have that conversation about like how much debt he's in. We see that Ali, who we didn't mention earlier, but he's a worker from Pakistan, right?
Yeah, he fled and is in South Korea illegally, so he doesn't really have papers. So he's been working under the table,
right? And they're kind of refusing to pay him, and then he like fucking like steals money from his boss and puts his fucking hand in a
I mean
he did accidentally do that with the hand thing.
Accidentally,
like,
and
was...
I mean, is it really stealing if he's just getting what he was owed?
True.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm with Ollie on this.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying what happened.
So, but yeah, he ended up taking money, and we realize he also has a wife and kid with him. So he gives them the money and has them leave the country because he kind of mauled a person.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically what ends up happening is they all, not all of them, but, like all of our main characters for sure, but, I think they said something like 93% of the people who
all but 14 people decide to come back.
Yeah, it was a very high percent of return.
Which is wild considering, it was a 50-50 vote to leave.
And now pretty much all of them want to come back.
Most of them came back because they realized, like, fuck, And, like, I guess to be fair, like, this wasn't brought up, but it could be some people being like, well, this is fucking unethical as shit to subject other people to it. But I would come back to it if it was all fucking volunteers, Like, no one expresses that opinion, but that could have been part of the reason for the numbers discrepancy,
Yeah.
But yeah, basically they all end up back in the game. We got a few other notable characters. There's a doctor whose name I'm not going to bother looking up because it's easy enough to just call him the fucking doctor, who they basically, what they do when they get back is they decide, like, a few independent groups of them decide, like, we're going to do better in these games if we kind of team up. So on the fucking good team, we've got Gi-yeon and Sang-woo and Ali. I think they don't initially, but eventually they get Se-byuk too, the pickpocket.
Yeah, she eventually joins.
And then the gangster and basically just some fucking nameless goons, and then eventually the doctor joins him.
And this girl.
And meanwhile, while all this is happening, there's like a detective guy who's like infiltrating this.
Oh yeah, so.
Oh fuck yeah.
when they get returned,
Gi-yeon goes
is
to the
only
police,
one who's like, hey, police, they did this thing, they murdered a bunch of people, maybe look into it, I don't know. Which, like, valid.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he's the only one that did that.
I'm sure others did
but
too, but, like, they ran into
in,
the
like,
same
other
problem.
districts, I guess. But, so he ends up leaving the business card with them, and one of the detectives who's looking for his missing brother, when he's at his missing brother's apartment, finds a similar business card.
Yeah.
So he's now like, oh, this is connected, and is now investigating what is going on. But it's only him.
Yeah.
So
and basically,
we get to follow him
right,
tangentially while we follow them.
Yeah, he sneaks into one of the fucking vans that they have all the chloroformed people in. And I guess it was two of them, right? He sneaks in, and also the girl, Sae-byuk, she, like, prevents herself from breathing in the air so she can bring in a knife, basically.
Yeah, she sneaks in a knife.
Which doesn't ultimately end up being that consequential.
Yeah.
But just to mention it. So yeah, he kind of sneaks aboard, and when they arrive,
he does murder a man.
He kills a guy. Yeah, he kills one of the people who's, like, scanning them in or whatever, because obviously he's not supposed to be there. So he kills him, and now he is kind of undercover as one of the actual, like,
he is now number 28.
29. No.
29? 29? He was either 29 or 28. I don't remember which one.
I think he was 29, but
he now
we could fucking talk all day about the goddamn numbers that people are. It doesn't matter that much.
It was just because that was the way they talked about him, because he doesn't have a name.
To fast forward it all,
they go through a series of, like, what, 5 or 6 games?
Kids games.
6 games. Yep.
Yeah.
The second game was
the sugar honey.
It's shapes. Sugar, the honeycomb.
They have, like, little
sugar things. They have to
brittle honeycombs, and
they
have to like pick out the shapes with a needle without cracking it, or they get shot.
And if you break the shape, you die.
That's where we get a hint of, like, what Sung-woo's about, which is throwing everyone else under the bus.
Because
he realized what the game was before they
didn't tell anyone else, which is.
And let his best friend pick the most
difficult shape. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a dick move.
The umbrella.
But, they get through that. Then the third game was Tug of War?
No. Yeah. Third game was Tug of War, where they had to get into groups of 10.
Which the doctor knew of ahead of time because he was doing illegal things from the game standpoint.
Yeah.
And they were giving him information on what the games were so that they could get through them easier.
Right.
So they knew, and their entire gang of 10 was just all men ready to go.
Yeah. Right. Which was, like, a whole fucking episode where it's just like, people being like, we gotta pick a team of 10. I'm sorry, but we have to only pick men because they're more likely to win. And I'm just like, all right.
Yeah,
y'all aren't athletes. You're just dudes, man.
Yeah.
But so there's
I feel like
Tug of War, which
that kind of
team wins.
Discrepancy wouldn't matter as much. But
the Tug of War thing was actually pretty interesting in terms of, like, how they won, because basically, like, they end up with, they've got the old man. They just not coming from me, but using the fucking show's logic. They had 3 women on their team, right? And and they're going up against, this group of, stronger men, not the other group, but a different group.
Not the bad guys.
Not the bad guys, but
thank God.
And I like how they handled this, because I was really expecting it to go a completely different direction. Basically, when they're on their trip up, the old man is like, "Hey, look, I know this is fucking dire, but I've got, like, this strategy from when I was a kid." And, like, basically they go through, like, the exact strategy that they go to win, and that they end up, like, outsmarting the other team, basically, by, like, putting all of their weight at the beginning and then tiring out the other team, and then they have to end up taking a few
having
steps.
An actual strategy for Tug of War was interesting.
Yeah, and then
that was
which
cool.
is good, because really, with the way that they had set this up beforehand, I really was expecting it to be kind of like a a joke moment where they discovered that the Pakistani guy was just strong enough to fucking pull the entire team, because they'd already set him up as like super strong
To be very
and
strong.
the character was already kind of like a racist stereotype. So I was that, like, honestly is what I was expecting, and I was just like, that's so fucking stupid. Why are you? And then they didn't do that, and I was like, okay, cool. Because, like, you know, they had scenes prior where it's like, you know, he was holding up Gion by one hand, and like when they had this whole fight in the middle of the night where people were trying to like eliminate survivors, and he picks up like a fucking I-beam, is like swinging around or whatever. So they'd already like,
but like it wasn't like he was swinging around like a superhero. He was just
strong.
like, you know, flailing.
No, they established he was overly strong.
right? Which, you know,
It was a bit
much.
Yeah.
But I can't blame them for this particular moment, because they didn't do that.
Maybe I'm just trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, but whatever. Then we get to the
what's the next
fourth
one?
game? That is the
it goes straight to the marbles, right?
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So the marbles.
Fourth is the marbles. And
that was so shitty.
Yeah. The marbles is
they just make you pick a partner.
They tell everyone to pick a partner
like
without any like context as to what they're gonna do.
Yeah, they're just like, pick a partner,
and everyone's thinking, oh, we're in teams. But no, the partner you pick is who you're competing with. And basically,
so this husband and wife had to compete against each other. I'm still so upset about that.
Yeah, and basically everyone ends up.
But also, why was a husband and wife in there together?
Yeah, I was wondering that.
Yeah, I feel like you could have hedged your bet, like have one not go in the game and one.
Yeah. Like, did you both have enough debts that you both had to go in? Like, no.
I was also just surprised that they were both asked to participate in the first place, because, like, you know, they could
sorry.
They were very, very minor characters, but we get like
so minor.
We basically get Gion and the old man team up. Ali and Sangwoo team up. The fucking, what's her name? Saebyuk and this other character who we didn't really talk about, but she was like a minor character who was on their team for the tug of war, who, you know, we got some characterization.
We really hadn't met her until
Mignon.
The marble.
Yeah, Mignon. No, not her.
No, that's
that was
no.
She was
different. Yeah, you're right.
She's the awful person.
Yeah, she's the most obnoxious character in the whole show. And what was really funny is at the beginning of this challenge, they all had to pair up, but there was an odd number of them, and she was the one who no one picked, and they like drag her away, and we just assumed that she gets killed, right?
Probably got killed. Oh, I wish.
But basically, what ends up happening is Gion and the old man seems like he's going kind of senile during this whole thing. So
yeah, he at even the beginning of the episode before they had to pick teams, was out of it and seemed not aware of things, and so it didn't seem like he was going to get picked,
right,
at all. And so Gion picked him because they were worried he was going to die if no one was picked.
Which is terrible, because if he didn't pick him, probably no one else would have, which means that he would have been probably the one to not have to participate at all.
Yeah. But they didn't know that was
for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So I get the concern.
Yeah.
He has a good heart. This main
you know,
character.
by the end of the fourth game, only the three. That would be Gi-hun, Sang-woo, and Saebyuk. Saebyuk survive of our main characters.
Right, but this one is significant, especially because like Gion basically ends up like reluctantly tricking the old man to.
They sit there and.
It's like a marble game. Like they basically they let them pick their own game. Most of them pick a game where they have to like, you know, count the number of marbles, or it doesn't matter. But anyway,
the end game is to have all of the marbles in your hand at the end.
And basically the old man who, like, Gion kind of takes advantage of his senility, you know, reluctantly, and then the old man kind of reveals at the end that he was aware that this was happening, and he lets him go on anyway and gets shot, allegedly. And then Sang-woo ends up Sang-woo ends up tricking Ali into like walking around without any of the marbles and then just leaves and gets him killed, that was real rough. Because Ali
that was so rough.
was
Because
such a...
Ali was winning the game the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, he was winning.
Right.
And Sungwoo didn't like that he was losing, so he manipulated him
and like,
to win
that
so he
pissed me
wouldn't
off.
die.
And then basically...
And he gave Ali false hope that they could both continue forward when that wasn't the case.
And then
it was really shitty.
Fucking just to breeze through, Saebyuk ends up getting out because the other girl just like basically lets her win. And then our gangster also wins his game and gets out as well. So basically we've eliminated half the contestants here, and then they go back and they realize that the crazy manipulative woman just didn't have to participate at all. She wasn't killed. She was just still there.
They gave her a pass because they didn't like that. They don't like when someone's left out for not being liked or something.
It was like this whole sort of philosophical environment with all the people talking about like, oh, how the games are fair and they're giving this opportunity to people who have been treated poorly and discriminated against in life, which is, all a bunch of bullshit ultimately, but like it's interesting that they talk about it at all.
Like, yeah, it's kind of like, I really wish they just didn't use that as a concept.
I mean, I think that's the point. Like, they claim it's fair, but it's all bullshit. Because as we find out,
it's so unfair for any woman involved in it. Like, it's dumb. It's so
and
shitty.
As we find out which brings us to the fifth game. Basically, there's like these two rows of
the bridge.
This bridge of two rows of glass panels, and like
is this supposed to be hopscotch? By the way,
no, I think it was just
because like they all are connected to some sort of game.
Yeah, this
that
one
you
was
did as a kid.
A little bit less, clear.
Yeah,
but
so I'm gonna
basically
give
there
them
was
hopscotch.
It was
half
two
the
rows
panels
of glass, half of which were tempered and could survive like a person stepping on them, and the other ones couldn't. So like they're not all in the same row or whatever. So basically they all had to go in a specific order that they picked out before knowing the game. And
R3 or last, of course.
You're right, yeah. Which is really funny because, like, Guion goes through this whole thing where he's deciding whether to be first or 16th, and then he ends up last. Yeah, he ends up going last, which is good for him because basically the first person has nothing to go off of, and it's basically just like, they make a decision, they get as far as they get, which is very unlikely that they get to the end, and then they fall to their death. And then the next person knows that next basically knows the path up until that point, and then has to guess from that point. So this is another one that kills a lot of people, and the only people at the end of it are just our last three, right?
Because
Gi-hun,
the
Sungwoo,
annoying chick,
and Saebyuk.
Yeah, the annoying
chick finally gets rid of the gangster guy in a blaze of glory as she takes him out with her because he's being a dick and won't go first, even though he's the next number to go first.
Yeah.
So like
also,
that was great.
And also just like the one like dude who was like a glass worker who could like tell the difference between the two glasses. They did him dirty. Like he was like he was able to tell the difference, and it's like, oh, okay, he's gonna.
Yeah, but if they were running out of time. They didn't have time.
No. What happened? No. What happened was
he means
like
the game people did him dirty.
All the rich people were like, oh, that's lame. All the rich people who were watching the games for fun were like, oh, that's lame. And like the front man's like, okay, I can take away his advantage, and they turn off the light, and that's why the glass worker guy couldn't tell the difference for the last
and then Songwoo ends up just like pushing him off to get to because they were running out of time at that point,
which slightly valid because when they do eventually all get across and the timer runs out, the bridge explodes. All of the glass explodes and shards go everywhere.
Interesting that all the shards looked like that, since that's not how tempered glass breaks, but whatever.
It's fine. I'm not mad about the bridge exploding or anything.
I'm just saying, like, okay, I can get behind the fact that Saebyuk got a shard in her because there were still some panels that weren't tempered glass. But the whole thing with tempered glass is when it breaks, it completely shatters into dust. It doesn't break into shards like that. That's the main difference between tempered glass and non-tempered glass.
Anyways.
But no.
Which,
so Sebyuk gets stabbed by glass, so she is now wounded significantly as the three of them prepare to go into the finale.
Yeah. And before the last game, they're all like given a dinner, and it's like, all right, just sleep the night. By the way, here's a steak knife.
Have a knife.
Wink.
Did anyone think that like I thought that steak was gonna be like poisoned or something? I didn't trust it until they were like, no, it's fine. It's your last. Like, just everything about when you give.
I thought like it was gonna be previous players is what I thought.
Right?
No.
Like just poison or cannibalism, one of the two.
No. I didn't think the steak was
going
to be poisoned simply because this is all in the context of like a bunch of people watching these poor people kill each other for fun. So it wouldn't be fun if they just trust
anything.
Also fucking wild to leave them in a room by themselves with only 3 people, because they very easily could have just ended the fucking game right there if one of them just killed the other 2, and that would have been that, right?
I mean,
like then they wouldn't have done
but like
the
I'm
last
sure
game.
the rich people were watching exactly that. So
fair.
Yeah.
I don't.
We should also
the whole rich people watching thing was weird.
Before we get into the fucking end, though, we should also fucking weird because they were all speaking English, like with their like. We'll get into it, or so maybe not. But
this entire show was in Korean, except for that entire like every time they cut to these people, they were speaking English.
But in the dub too, wild. I mean, they're all like I watched the dub version because
Oh, I was gonna ask how that was.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was speaking Mandarin. One of them was speaking Mandarin, so. Like
for some of his sentences,
he speaks Mandarin in the sub too.
To fucking talk about this right now, just as like the English dub acting was a little rough, which was weird in the scene where all the people are actually speaking English and aren't being dubbed over, because their dialogue is similarly as confounding as the rest of it. Like, they still sound super weird and unnatural in the way that they speak and the way that the dub
so
does.
it sounds like that English section for the entire thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I would not have been able to sat through that. Oh God.
Yeah, it's a little odd. But anyway, what I was going to say is before we get into the last game, we should talk about the journey of the fucking the cop.
Detective.
Yeah. Like, basically he ends up like trying to find his brother, and he ends up getting not caught, but they know that there is an intruder because of this whole fucking like there's a group of them that are like selling organs, which is what they needed the doctor for, and that all falls through. So the front man, the main guy in charge there, is looking for whoever the intruder is, and at this point he's hiding, and he finds his way to the file room.
Gathering as much evidence as he can. Important things he notes: this isn't the first game that's happened. It's been going on since 1988, and he's just been gathering evidence, voice clips, pictures, what have you, and eventually he like on the run trying to find a way out to get this information to people. He's trying to get a signal, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna send you some stuff, track my GPS, and it doesn't.
It's just like, I don't know what's going on here.
Like,
yeah, it was a bunch of like if you're, it's all very out of context, nothing really helpful because you don't know the he kind of needed to explain all of it to the guy and can't.
And eventually they catch up with him, and the reveal, which I know Jocelyn did, I know I did, I don't know about you, Chowder, but saw this coming from a fucking mile away.
Yeah, I saw that.
The front man takes off his mask, and he is the brother that he's been looking for the whole time, because he was, and
he won the game his year.
Yeah.
And he's been working with the company ever since.
Right.
When did you figure it out, Jeff? Was there like a moment that you knew? Because there was a moment that I realized.
As soon as he fucking, they had the whole scene where he was like, you know, the guy that you killed, his kidney was, you know, is in my body because that was my brother. And the guy's like, no, the person we're talking about was a girl. I was like, okay, it's definitely got to be the fucking, the guy.
I had suspicions for that, but then when he found the box in the, of the winners' names in the record room, and it was the same box with the ribbon that was in the guy's room where the business card was found, I was like, oh,
for sure,
it's the same dude.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but the way that ends is basically the detective dude's brother shoots him off a cliff. He
has to join him, and he was like, no, so he shot him.
So presumably detective dude's dead, and we go on to the 6th game, which is Squid Game.
Which we're not going to explain the rules of, because it basically just ends up in an all-out fight between fucking...
But we should point out that Sae-byuk was murdered while she was already dying by
Sang-woo. Because Sang-woo is completely off the deep end at this point. So then the whole final showdown is between Gi-yeon and Sang-woo. And then they fight for a while. Basically, the game ends with Gi-yeon getting the upper hand, and then he's about to win, and then he's like, no, I want to vote to end the game right now. And then Sang-woo just stabs himself in the neck to make sure that Gi-yeon gets the money and wins.
Because the only rule was that if one of them dies, the other one wins.
Right, yeah.
So, it doesn't matter how.
Because it basically just ends with them fucking, like, fighting on the ground, trying to stab each other. The rules of Squid Game are not terribly relevant. But yeah, so then Gi-yeon gets out, and we find out basically, like a year has passed, and he just hasn't used any of the money out of guilt, and he's just living the same life that he was before. He finds out as soon as he gets out that
connected with his daughter.
Yeah,
his mom died.
His mom
right
died
when he
while he was gone, which is rough.
Yeah.
He just finds her dead.
And then at the end, he gets a fucking card that alludes to the fact that the old man is fucking still alive. And then he goes,
that old man.
He meets him, and he's just like, dog, what the fuck? And it's like, oh yeah, I was behind it the whole time, and I was the one who was sponsoring this, and I just decided right before I wanted to die, because I got this brain tumor, that I wanted to participate in these games, because I'm a rich man, and just the same, you poor people and us rich people are just the same, because we have no reason to live. And I'm like, fuck right off with that narrative, but whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and he makes a deal with Gi-yeon that, like, if no one helps this man by midnight, it's like one last test of morality of society, which the dude fails, but he doesn't live to see it. Like, he dies as the guy's getting help, so it's like, what the fuck doesn't matter?
Although I can't help but think, like, of the rules they've established for this bet, there's nothing saying Gi-yeon couldn't be the one to help the guy, right? Couldn't he have just, like...
Yeah, I was wondering that, too.
Right?
I thought he was just
him
going to go
run
out.
down. But someone did, it's like, some random person did go help, so, like, it was, yeah. But that, like, and then he's going to finally deal with the money and stuff, and, like, he does finally help Sae-byuk's little brother
and he dyes
and
his
give
hair.
money to... He dyes his hair like Ronald McDonald.
Yeah.
But then he sees this dude doing the slap game that he had done at the beginning, and, like, goes and stops the guy and steals the business card and then calls them and joins the game again.
No, he doesn't.
Unsure. I think it was
unsure.
supposed to be like he's maybe going to, like,
because I couldn't tell if it was I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna kill you all, or like
I
very
think
Taken
it's
vibes,
intentionally
or if it
supposed
was...
to be ambiguous as to whether he's deciding to just go participate again or to go take them down. I think that for the broader
like
narrative
that as a thing
of the
in
show,
general.
I would guess that it would probably be that he's going to participate, but I don't know.
I
would
thought he
feel
was just gonna
inconsistent
go
with his
take
character.
them down somehow. I mean, question on how he would possibly do that.
I just didn't. It was like, can we just not? Can you just go live his life and ignore that it ever happened, please?
Or, find some way at the last second to fucking... I was really thinking that the cop was going to come back after, falling into water off a cliff and getting shot in the shoulder, but no.
No.
Unsure if this is going to have another season.
Yeah, we don't know. It could.
But
I guess theoretically.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it was ultimately,
But everyone I liked is gone.
It
so.
was, yeah, true. It was kind of a trip, this whole thing. It was like, an interesting look at like the morality of these people and like the mechanics of it. I don't.
but it's a good thing we don't have to deal with the Squid Games in real life. We just have to deal with the reality that the Squid Games are a metaphor for.
Yeah, the whole thing
Yeah.
with like his dialogue, the old man's dialogue about like how the super rich and the super poor were like the same because they're both miserable. I'm like, no, because you have infinitely more options,
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean,
and like
the point
you
is
could also
the old
just
man
give away enough money to have to like worry about.
Yeah. I mean,
things again.
the obvious point is the old man was full of shit, but
true.
Yeah, I don't think the show really needs to spell that one out. Like
no,
No.
sure, but I'm saying we've gotten plenty of narratives like that before, and it's like a well-known statistic that like past a certain amount of wealth, like people aren't measurably any happier with a lot of wealth. So I could see how like on a surface level, without diving into it, that would be the narrative stance that some properties would take, because it is ultimately this message of like, don't fucking try to get super rich because it's like it's not fucking worth it. But when you're comparing that to people who are not trying to get super rich and are just trying to fucking straight up settle their debts so they can live their lives, that's just not the same thing. So I don't know for sure if I could like absolutely positively say that was the show's intent.
I think the intent of the show is that the rich pit the poor against each other, so they don't look up and focus on the real enemy, which are the rich.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Classic.
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't. Right. It doesn't dive into that idea in much of like a deeper, sort of more nuanced way. So, like, I don't know. Like, like it definitely does seem like there are moments of it where it was just kind of like boiling these people down to being like greedy, when in reality they were trying to settle debts, not make a bunch of money. Right. So like, it depends on the moment in the show, but it like, I think it walks that line a little bit about like whether it's presenting all the people who even participated in the Squid Game as like somewhat immoral to begin with. You know what I mean? Like there's like
everyone had faults that were over, like that they really presented more so than like them as a person.
Yeah, and like especially when we're
sense?
looking at like Gi-yeon and Sung-woo are interesting foils for each other, because like aside from a lot of the other characters, both of them are characters whose debt is really self-inflicted, right? Like, they both, when you boil down to it, both gambled away their money for the most part, right? Like, it was obviously in very different ways, and like they have very different like outlooks about it, and like, we get the idea that Gi-yeon is like this character who was never like given these opportunities like Song-woo was, but he's an ultimately kinder person, and Song-woo is like a little bit cutthroat in the way that he, very
and
cutthroat
I mean,
in the way that
keep
he
in
plays
mind,
these games.
well, I think it's important to note that Gi-yeon didn't like go straight to gambling addiction. He was he was a fair and legitimate worker who got fired and then like went on strike with his fellow workers, and the state went down on them and killed a guy in front of him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's tough because like I watched the sub, and there's actually been a lot of stuff coming out about how like the subtitles are not translated to properly explain a lot of the nuances that are in some of the lines, in which actually completely changed the characterization of Mion, the girl who is kind of slutty. Like that's like what they paint her as in the translation.
Oh, that's interesting.
In the dub as well.
Yeah,
she's not really presented that way in the dub. I mean, she definitely she sleeps with it.
Yeah, no,
well, it's mostly she has a lot of moments where in the sub she like, especially when she's trying to get on anyone's like partnership.
Oh, she's like,
she gets very like, she gets very like, I'll do anything. But like,
yeah, it's not really.
There's a line.
It's not that way in the dub.
In the sub, there's a line where she basically says like, the real translation of it is that like she's smart, but she's just never gotten the opportunity to learn. Like if she had been given the proper tools and world, she would be probably very successful.
Yeah, no,
she is.
But because
something I was
that,
noticing with Ali is like when he was talking with his wife, the subtitles would like go speaks in Urdu, speaks in Hindi, and I'm like, my dude, those are not the same languages, my friend.
Yeah.
that
like
was...
like every other sentence, the subtitles would be like in Urdu, in Hindi, in Urdu, in Hindi. I'm like,
are you fucking saying they didn't translate what he was saying?
Well, they would translate it, but it would be in parentheses of like, this is the language that's being spoken.
Gotcha.
When that's not true.
Well, because I know, like, fucking, I remember that shit from, like, Firefly, wherever they would, like, say, like, Chinese proverbs or whatever, they wouldn't say what they meant. They just said speaks in Chinese in the fucking subtitles, and I'm just like,
no.
That's not helpful.
No, this would translate it, but it's like...
But, like, they're clearly speaking one language, but the subtitles are claiming that there are two languages being spoken, and it's like, why?
That's so strange.
Yeah,
he was an interesting character because like the entire like his whole thing where he's just like I've seen some articles talking about it in ways that like say like why the dub or the sub kind of makes it seem like worse than it is, but ultimately his character does kind of seem like a racist stereotype.
Here's the thing, I get what they're going for. Like the point is that like this is a defense mechanism because he has to appeal to everyone, otherwise they will, because they have the power over him, and thus he has to appeal to them and go overboard on the honorifics and the and the sniveling.
But it's more of the honor, like that part of it is part of just the language, which is like that's how Korean is. But there is this aspect that is still very correct to read into, that there is colorism in like Eastern culture.
Oh yeah, no, there is definite colorism.
So like that's the part of it that I think Jeff is more talking about, is that like they are talking down about Ali as a person.
I'm trying to say that like while there is definite colorism, I think there is some truth to like the character he's supposed to be in real life. Like I've got relatives who are very much like him, who like are desperate not to get on anyone's bad side, because getting on someone's bad side has dire consequences.
Sure, but like I think to really say that it's not like a stereotypical betrayal, like they would have to go into that a little bit more, because like like if you see a racist stereotype in another kind of movie, right? Like even if someone who acts like that in real life, that doesn't like negate whether or not it's a racist stereotype, right? Like I guess like like at least in like Western media, the bigger problem is like a trend of characters that all act the same exact way from certain races, whereas like I can't really speak to the broader South Korean media
that's
portrayal of Pakistanis, but
not really. They just tend to not have those characters. That tends to be the thing, is they'd rather just keep it.
I mean, I think
Korean.
A good example is like the movie Crazy Rich Asians. Not a Korean movie, but an American movie with a lot of Asian actors, and like there's a scene where main characters are freaking out because a bunch of dudes in turban like walk up to their car, and it's like, man, chill the fuck out, man. And it's it's just it's just very obvious colorism, and it's definitely here too, but like I think
that they're using it here more to talk about the fact that it's being done, rather than it being like it's the commentary of it rather than it being an example.
Yeah,
of
that's
it,
the thing.
if that makes sense.
Like the point is I'm fine. I'm not too peeved by it because like it's clearly trying to make commentary, and it could be done better, definitely, but like I wouldn't say it's bad per se.
It kind of reminds me on the same lines of like all the like weirdly transphobic things in Carol and Tuesday, where it's just like it's clear that they're trying to make a positive message about this, but they haven't quite nailed the nuance to the point where it kind of seems a little counterproductive. It's sort of
okay, yes, exactly.
That's a very good way to put it.
Exactly, yeah. That's how I feel.
Because it was definitely, there's a couple moments where I'm like, you probably didn't need to do that,
right? Right.
But
anyways, we need to move on because
the intent was
All right, let's. I think we've talked a good amount of the show. I mean, you get a good vibe of it just from just the fucking plot and how it is. It's a wild show, and I wouldn't say it's like that wild compared to like similar stuff that goes into the same territory.
It's kind of like a classic. Ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, it's definitely interesting to view it as like from a Western perspective, just because like I don't regularly, get exposed to media from the East in that same kind of way. So it's interesting to see like the way that the show handles things differently than like it would be handled over here, and to see like obviously that has its ups and downs in terms of like the cultural insensitivities that I might notice more coming from them that I wouldn't notice as much in our own media because it's so status quo, but also dives into like the logistics of the games in ways that they wouldn't do in it over here, right? In ways that is like interesting. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like that's probably a good time to move on into the ratings section. Thank you both for a very good discussion. Now we are going to be rating the Squid Game on a scale from 1 to 10. I mean, I wanted to say games.
Squids. 1 to 10 squids.
I guess. There were no squids in the entire show.
There were no actual squids.
Also, I feel like when we're talking about this whole game being based on the shape of a squid, the tentacles are like an inherent part, a essential part of what makes a squid looks like a squid. I guess the fucking square with the goddamn triangle on top looks like a squid. Whatever.
It could be 1 out of 10 creepy robot girls.
From the
that's
first
like
episode.
The main imagery. Yeah, that's like the main imagery they've been using for the show.
Oh,
but
that's weird.
Right?
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
I'll start out first. I'll give Squid Games 8 out of 10 because I think my sister put it best. She says that like with Squid Games, there was never a moment where she was uninterested, where it ever got dull, and I think that's the case. Like you are engaged throughout the whole thing, and I think it makes its commentary well. The characters are very compelling, and it's very good. I definitely liked it.
All right, Jocelyn.
I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10 as well, just because the ending really bugged me.
Yeah.
Like, I was so into the show until the ending, and then it kind of made some of the stuff unravel a bit and made me notice a bit more of the, like, which is, like, a whole other commentary and other things, but, like, there's a lot of sexism.
For sure, yeah.
Underlining a lot of it, and it's just, like, I would have forgiven that if the ending kind of felt a bit more satisfying.
Yeah.
Like you can look past more flaws if it sticks the landing kind of a thing. It was very enjoyable. I was really, really into it. I think I watched it in like less than 48 hours, kind of a thing. Like I just really zipped through it. So like,
I've got to get going, so I'm just gonna stop my recording. You guys just can keep doing doing this,
All right.
and just do your thing. Okay.
Okay.
See you guys.
Chowder's gotta go to work. Bye,
Sorry,
Chowder.
bye, Chowder.
But yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I'm kind of landing. I think I'm gonna give it probably like a 7 out of 10, maybe like leaning between
That's fair.
6 and 7, just because like you're right, and like what Chowder said too is like it was engaging all the way through. Like I found the stories interesting, but ultimately like you said, like especially when it got to the ending felt very like cliche, I want to say, for like this type of media, whereas like the entire thing is like it was kind of predictable to watch it and be like, okay, like because of the way this stuff typically operates, I'm assuming that the brother is going to be this masked guy, right? And yeah, I even had the thought when they didn't show the old man getting shot on screen that I was just like, I feel like he's involved. Like, I had that thought. It was, like, not based on a lot of evidence, really, within the show, because, like, they did a good job of concealing it, but it was just like, I have this feeling that, like, someone is going to be revealed to be, like, in on it a bit more, and the old man seems like kind of the obvious candidate for that. So it kind of just, like, it didn't really have a ton of surprises, and I think that the ending for me is like kind of the epitome of that, whereas like this kind of show going in, I could be like, yeah, this is probably gonna have like a weird fucking ambiguous ending. I really don't want it to, and I'm hoping that it doesn't when we get to the end of it, but that's not unexpected, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt when it got to the end of it, where it's just like, all right, I mean, there are things to be done about it.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I mean, if they give me a second season, I guess I'll watch it, but if this is where it ends, I'm kind of...
Yeah, it's kind of a lackluster ending, so, I don't know, that's where I land on it. Again, like, the English dub, I mean, I've seen worse dubs, but I was kind of surprised that it seemed like the dialogue was so, like, sort of...
So stilted?
Yeah, stilted, and, like, you know, it definitely felt like the dubbing was done by, like, you know, a Korean company that knew the English language rather than, like, an English language company doing it, you know what I mean? Which is pretty evident also, like, with the rich people, too, with, like, the rich people who, like, the majority of are, like, white people, and I'm just like, why are they speaking that way? Like, you know how to speak English fluently, like... Well,
that is the thing with K-dramas, which is why I was wondering how that scene was in the dub, because that was gonna be the tell for me of, like, did Netflix hire someone to adjust the script from Korean to English and they did the actor dub, or was it done by the Korean side, and so it was done by the Korean side?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Which is why it sounds like that.
Which is like, I don't know, I feel like I kind of got used to it at a certain degree, because like, it's one of those shows where it's like, I'm not necessarily watching it because it's bad, but I'm kind of down for the whole like absurdity of it, so I'm not like worried about the cracks between the, you know, concrete and as much, you know. I'm just like, yeah, all right, they're acting what they're acting, but like I get the idea of their characters, you know. So I don't know, it was a little rough, but not too terrible. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much a good place to end off here, I think. Again, I have been your host, Jeff Leavitt. If you want to find me on the internet, I have a YouTube channel where I do mainly toy reviews, and that is Alchemist Prime Reviews on YouTube. Again, I've been joined by Chowder and Jocelyn. Fucking Chowder has a Twitter. Is Chowder?
Yeah, you can steal his ending fucking thing from another episode.
Yeah.
Just copy and paste it.
Right.
He won't know.
Well, he's the one editing, so he'll know.
Oh, then he can record it. That's fine.
But Jocelyn, do you have anything you want to toss out there?
I do. Hi, I'm Jocelyn. You can watch Mau Mau Heroes of Pure Heart on HBO Max, or Tigtone and the series on HBO Max. I'm so mad I can't plug anything else yet, but
one day.
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon.
Jocelyn worked on those shows, in case you were wondering, that she's not just fucking giving you goddamn media recommendations.
Yeah, no, I worked on those. And there's more to come, and I can't wait to talk about it. And I'm just,
But
there's stuff dropping today, so I'm like,
oh, that's exciting. That means it will have dropped by the time that this episode actually airs.
Yes.
But yeah. We'll be back for another episode. Our next episode is going to be another common briefing program where we talk about the geek news for the month of October, and that will be on the first Friday in October, or the first Friday in November, rather, the 5th. And then our next episode like this, where we just do a deep dive into a piece of media, will be on the third Friday in November, which will be the 19th, according to my calendar. So, yeah, thanks for watching, listening, subscribing. I guess no one's really watching. You're listening. Subscribing, You're listening. Sharing, everything you do, and we'll talk to you next time. Ciao.
This episode of the Common Geeking Program was hosted by Jeff Leavitt. Followed this episode by Taeemul Chowdhury and Jocelyn Parkenhagen. The Common Geeking Program was created by Jeff Leavitt and Colin Ketchen, with music by Colin Ketchen. This episode was edited by me, Taeemul Chowdhury. This episode of the Common Geeking Program was brought to you by Late Stage Capitalism. No matter how hard you try, you're a marionette on strings. But anyways, thanks for listening. Make sure to comment and share our podcast if you like it. You can find more at commongeekingprogram.com. You can also find us on Twitter, @geekingprogram. Stay in touch, stay tuned, and thank you for listening.
Bye.
Durr.
I never know how to end these things.
Yeah, well, usually Chowder says chow, and then I say dur. But Chowder's not here to say chow, so I'll say chow and dur. So now I'm just saying Chowder.
Yeah.
It's a predicament. Goodbye.
Goodbye.